Welcome back to another episode of BCentrico in Conversation, where we talk about storytelling, sustainability, and social impact. I'm your host, Caroline Asiala, and the CEO of BCentrico, and I'm so excited for you to hear the conversation that we had today with Sanjay Doreiraj. He is an expert engineer and tech for good enthusiast. We talked about channeling compassion and what you need to know about starting your own tech for good project in your community, the next trends in giving, and closing the loop on impact. There are so many great tips in this conversation, so take a listen. This is BCentrico in Conversation. Welcome to BCentrico in Conversation, Sanjay. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's really great to be here too, Caroline.
Awesome.
Thank you for the opportunity. Yeah.
So we've talked to a number of people on this series so far with lots of different backgrounds in finance and marketing, in business development, but you are our first engineer on the show. So thank you for bringing in that diversity. I think when most people think about social impact and working in social impact, engineering is not something that necessarily comes to mind right away. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and what brought you to this space and the social impact work that you're doing?
Yeah, sure. Once again, I appreciate you giving me this opportunity. It's really it's great to tell my story, and thank you for allowing me to have that voice. So I have been in the technology space for over 20 years now, and during that time, I've worked in pretty much. We talk about the technology stack, which involves whether you're developing, something for, say, mobile devices, or developing something for what they call, Internet of Things, right? So there's just a variety in terms of the technology itself, right? And I've kind of I worked pretty much across the board in the technology stack, and I believe that at this point it's brought me to a point where I feel that the knowledge that I have managed to accumulate will allow me to build out something that integrates a lot of the different pieces, and in a sense, like sort of build out a company, right? In a sense, something that includes all of these different pieces, given my experience, and essentially, I have been looking for these opportunities, like how can I actually lend, or how can I help, use this diversity of my experience in order to go out and create something, right? And that's where, given where I am, and also like a bit of background that I have, where since college, I'd say since maybe I'm 17 years old, I have been very involved in supporting social causes. For example, when I was doing my college, I think in my graduate program back in India, one of the things I used to do was visit a home for the dying and the destitute, like every Sunday, and that kind of and the experience that I had during those visits was truly something that was very transformational, right? I started to realize the joy and the happiness that one felt, right, in giving, right? And that's, you normally think about, when you do something or you share something, it's taking away a part of you, right? But what I realized is that when you give something or you do something for others, right, that makes others happy, it actually adds to who you are, and it makes you more than, it gives you more happiness and gives you more joy, gives you more confidence. It does all of these things to you that sometimes may sound counterintuitive, right? And I've always felt that I felt more blessed to be giving than even sometimes a receiver. I mean, to me, it's an opportunity to give, right? And this has been kind of, I guess, sitting in the background for me, like for over the years. And I've always been looking for an opportunity to to more fully engage myself in in giving, right? And I think technology is a force multiplier. The way I see technology is that technology is a tool that can help force multiply our intentions, and rather than maybe doing something at a very small scale, it can actually help amplify your intentions and amplify your actions, right? And that's where I thought I could help, given my technology background and my passion to do something, right, to improve the quality of of living, right, for others. I felt that I could bring my strengths in technology to help, and that's kind of what got me started. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really an interesting point, that when you're giving, you're actually also giving something to yourself. There's a lot of research out there that compassion and giving and doing things for others is actually a really important part of building happiness in your life. There are those two main areas: relationships, having strong relationships with people that you love, and giving to others. And I think a lot of the time, the conversation around self-care gets warped into this idea that it's all about you and self-care is all about you, when really sometimes the best thing that you can do for yourself is to help somebody else and to give to someone else. I want to talk a little bit about your project and what we've built together with Centrico and your team, Easy Donate, to channel those resources to organizations, whether those resources be time or money or in-kind donations. Can you talk about the landscape of philanthropy and giving and what sparked this idea for you and for you to bring this team together?
To me, once again, giving to me is the key to a happier life. I strongly believe that. Like, that's my core belief. I think that when you share, when you make that connection with another person, the first thing that happens is awareness, right? You know about how others feel. You know about the situation that others are in. And that is an eye-opener. The moment you connect with someone and you feel their pain and you feel their need, you feel their want, right? It kind of opens your eyes to, to the world around you, right? And it makes you closer to the world around you. And I think there is power in that connection, right? And then when you go on to make that connection, to realize that, make that person feel better about, their situation and make them try to improve their situation, right? That has, it creates a better bond between the two of you. And it also improves your sense of confidence, because every one of us want to be valued, right? And to be valued is the most, is a key need for us. I mean, the loss of value, people commit suicide sometimes because they don't feel that what they're doing is of value, right? The moment you give, right, you are building value for yourself, right? So in a sense, like, the act of giving is so powerful that it just, benefits immensely the giver and the receiver, right? And imagine, for example, that you could amplify that. You had the power to amplify that and, make that more, make it more frequent, right? Make more and more people involved. Imagine the amount of awareness of our situation that we can create, and, the amount of positive change that you can drive, right? That is the fundamental reasoning behind why we went ahead and started Easy Donate. So Easy Donate was all about, driving that awareness so that people can understand and get closer to each other. Because, it's sort of like, I remember my boss, when I used to work in a previous company, we as human beings, we tend to make assumptions when we operate in a silo, right? Great guy. Anytime I used to sort of like go to him and say, I'm having trouble with this guy, he keeps like always pushing back. And the first thing he would say is, did you talk to him? Right?
Right.
And, I would say, no, I didn't talk to him, right? Because all this time I'm building my own story inside my mind about how the world around is reacting to me, right?
Right.
But the reality is that in more than 90% of cases, it's always, when you have that conversation, you realize that, the world is not against you. People have their own circumstances, their own situations, their own family trouble. It's like, don't jump to conclusions, but rather open up and have that conversation, right? Especially in the world that we live in that is so polarized, where we're building these walls that separate us, right? The idea is, can we break down these walls, right? And can we make those connections so that people understand each other's viewpoints better, so you can have a more civil conversation, right? It's very similar here too, right? Instead of assuming people are lazy and that's why they are what they are, right? To open up and make that connection and see what they're going through, right? I think that is important, right? And so Easy Donate was built on that premise.
I love the part about understanding other people's stories. I remember hearing somewhere, sometime, and probably many times, that you can't hate someone whose story you really know. And I think that's so true. And it's true in those seemingly mundane situations at work where maybe someone doesn't turn in something on time and you immediately think, oh, well, they just don't care about it enough. And that's the problem here, when really maybe they had a million different requests and they had to prioritize something, and something happened in their life and they had to move through and navigate a complex situation. And there are more things than just people not caring about it or people being against you. And so I like that you have to talk to people, you have to make that connection in order to really understand. And what Deanna Singh, who is the founder of Uplifting Impact, who we talked to on this program as well, build a bridge, ask questions, seek understanding, build a bridge toward that person. So I really love that. Can you talk a little bit about creating a Tech for Good project and maybe what Tech for Good means to you? Tech is not always used for good and it doesn't always have a positive impact on society. I think a lot of even the platforms that were originally meant to bring people together, meant to make connections with people, ended up dividing them more.
Yeah.
I won't say any names, but I'm sure anyone listening to this can see who I'm talking about. So talk to me about Tech for Good. What does Tech for Good mean to you, and how do you ensure that it stays Tech for Good?
So technology is a tool. I think there's an analogy to the mind as well, right? Where, a lot of times, actually, I think the mind, our human mind is a really good analogy sometimes to how technology gets used, right? So a lot of times, we're sort of a slave to our mind and to our thoughts, right? And our thoughts sort of like are continuously running in the background, and we just get carried away whichever way it goes, right? But our mind is a tool, right? It's a tool that if we can control and we can channelize in the right way, we can do great things, right? Technology is identical. Technology is a tool, and it's what is important is the purpose, right? What is it you're trying to do, right? And sometimes, the way that I like to think about it is to just go back 100 years, right? And there was no technology. Well, there was, but maybe, but not as much as it is now, right? if I had a good intention, if I wanted to go and do something, let's say that, I wanted uh, to draw more awareness to, people in need in my area. So I want to make that connection in sort of a more like 100 years back, right? What would I do, right? So the things that I would do is, I would try to maybe set up a meeting or something like that, maybe like a town hall, talk to folks in the area, set up a town hall, get people together, you know, so I build a platform, right? I build a platform that can connect people together. Then, I'm going to talk about stories, right? I'm going to maybe bring people on there to tell their stories, their experiences, and then try to get, people who are listening to sort of like understand and appreciate what is going on, so that as a whole they can do something about it. So maybe a campaign, right? So the key thing is to stay grounded in purpose, like what is it you're trying to do, and to look at how technology can serve as an amplifier to driving your purpose, right? If you forget that, right, if you start looking at technology as the purpose, right, I'm going to do whatever technology tells me to do, whatever technology allows me to do, then the meaning is lost.
It's using technology as a tool, not as the driving force, right? The driving force is the purpose. The driving force is the impact that you're creating. The driving force for many companies may not be charitable giving, but it could be satisfaction for clients or employees or creating an impact in your community. And so that purpose is what drives you, and technology is a tool in your toolbox of many tools that you can use to create that change. Yeah, I think that's a great definition of tech for change. Can you talk about how to build a team around that kind of mission? What do you do first when you have someone who wants to do a tech for good project? What is the first thing that you have to do, and who do you get on board?
You have to believe in what you're trying to do. You have to believe in it so strongly that you can get people to align with you, with your belief, right? That is the first thing, right? You've really got to be convinced that what you're doing is going to make positive impact. And it has to be something that, that you can also convince others to come along for the ride. Because, for others, right, especially like if you're looking to recruit folks who can really help you and make you make a difference, you need to be able to tell them your story, and you need to make them buy into your story. Because a lot of times at the beginning of the ride, people are just going to volunteer, right? And people have other priorities. They have their families, they have their work, right? And you're asking them to give up a part of that in order to come and support your cause. So you better be sure, and you better believe really strongly in your purpose, so that you can articulate that well enough when you have that conversation with them. So that is the most important thing, is that you got to believe in your mission. It cannot be, you cannot have doubt. Okay. The second thing is, and then the next thing is, you build support for your mission. Like you start off talking with your family, with your friends, trying to see whether it's sort of like in statistics, we do hypothesis testing, right? It's very similar to that, right? You're trying to go out there and vet your ideas, right? Rather than go and invest money and go and do something big. Before that, you want to just run around with people and see what people think. So the second step is basically recruiting people who believe in your mission, right? Recruiting support for your ideas, and then trying to form a team. Right? Maybe you start off with a team, even 2 people, 3 people is good enough to, that gives you more confidence in your ideas, and also gives you, the confidence that something that you can execute. And the third is to start. I mean, there's multiple ways it depends on what you're trying to do. In some cases, it could be just awareness of a problem, right? You're trying to make people aware of maybe, homelessness in your area, right? In order to do something like that, it doesn't really cost a lot. You can set something up. There are books like the 7-Day Startup that can show you how to use WordPress to roll something up out in 7 days, including all the marketing and the messaging and everything, and get stuff done, right? But sometimes you may want to do something that's more involved, like Easy Donate, right, where we're actually building out a platform. And in those cases, you have to actually build out an infrastructure to support the platform. So there's more work involved. But like I said, like the first step would be having an idea, right, and making sure that you believe in that idea. You believe it's going to drive the change that you want to happen, and then vetting it, recruiting supporters, forming a small team, and the third would be just go and start and do it. And we can talk more about that. Yeah,
absolutely. I think the key is to have the right conversations first. I like what you talked about floating the idea with multiple people and with all the stakeholders that might be involved in something like that. So for Easy Donate, it might be talking to local charities, talking to people who are donors, and figuring out what are the kinds of issues that they have. I see these issues in philanthropy and giving, but what are other people saying? And sort of validating your own beliefs and claims and even changing some of them so that they adapt to what people are saying. And then building that team, identifying who you need, even if that's a couple hours once every week that person can dedicate, but leveraging the people that you know and the skills that they have, and then doing something. The worst thing that you can do is nothing. And we say that at Centrico a lot. We use if you're not moving forward, you're moving backward. There's no such thing as standing still. And the faster you start something, the faster you'll realize if it's wrong and you can change. But if you don't start anything, then you're not going to get that feedback.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah. Right. So you're not, yeah, I think like, again, another core belief of mine is, you're not in this for the winning, right? You're in this for the doing, right? It's the process of doing that is more important. So the way I look at this, it took us like more than 10,000 years to get to where we are today, right? To get to all of the confusion and the chaos sometimes. And we're not going to lift ourselves up in a year.
Right.
It's going to probably take another 1,000 years before we get to a point where, we rise above, whatever, pettiness that is drawing us apart, right? But the solution is going to outlive you, right? You're not going to be here when stuff happens that you want to happen, and it's important to first and foremost, level set with that, right? You're not here to see your mission succeed. For the most part, some people are lucky. They may do that, but for the most part, you're here for the journey, right? And every time you take a step in the right direction, you've succeeded. So it's especially in this space, right? And doing good, because your missions are always great. Your mission is, I want to make the world a happier place. You're not going to do that overnight, not going to do that in your lifetime, right? And you got to buy into that. So you got to get used to that. Get used to, it's going to be a messy place, but you want to understand that every drop of water makes a mighty ocean. Every good connection that you make, every time you create a positive effect, you're making the world, much closer to where you want it to be. So I think it's that keeps people from being disappointed, right? That keeps people from being frustrated, knowing, level setting with reality, right? And the reason I mentioned that was because, I think part of your, that's it's got to be something that you understand, like before you get started on this path, that you want to appreciate the journey and not the outcome, because if you're going to wait for the outcome, you may not live to see it. Right?
Yeah, and if you're constantly looking for that, then you will constantly be disappointing yourself. Whereas if you do your part and you're happy with that, with your part, just know that you are part of a much bigger story on a much bigger timeline.
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah.
What are some of the trends that you see in giving that are exciting for you and for the Easy Donate project?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that I see a change in the paradigm around giving, right? I think giving right now is is very superficial. Okay, and what I mean by that is, there's no attempt to connect the dots between how the work that you've done has driven impact, right? We don't close the loop on giving, right? There is no transparency in how what you have given has created an impact, right? And I think that's about to change, right? What I see happening is that a lot of the larger organizations are investing in trying to close the loop for a lot of people, right? Because they know that people are going to be more motivated to give when they understand how the giving, understand the impact that giving creates, right? So I've also been talking to some of the larger organizations on how maybe technology can help create that or help provide more insight into the impact of giving. But that's definitely a trend that I see, where we want to close the loop and get people more informed on how the work that they do is actually creating an impact, and to be able to create those long-term connections with the people that they're working with. So that's definitely something that you're going to see change with technology and machine learning and artificial intelligence and mining data. It's easy for us to note those trends and to see how to sort of derive this sort of insight. Then I think the other big area that's going to be impacted is discoverability, right? Right now, like it's a push-based model. I mean, you discover because, someone on Facebook tagged you on a link that's out there, and then you see, okay, I think someone needs help, and you go and click. But it would be a much better world if, imagine a world where, let's say that you wanted to help, right? You could do a search and say, I want to help the homeless, and immediately you got a listing of all of your friends that are actively involved in helping the homeless, to be able to have a conversation with them. If you were able to get information on that could educate you, because people are sometimes afraid to help the homeless. They're not sure, what's going to happen. Can they just go and talk to someone? People don't know how to interact with homeless. So educational material in terms of, that's helping you and guiding you through that experience. Mentors that you can talk to, that you can trust and talk to in order to help you with that experience, because someone who can coach you and make you feel more comfortable about that. And then, homeless shelters near you, right? These are things, you go and do a Google search. None of this happens today, right? But all of that is going to change. I think there's a lot of work on the discoverability side where, based on your interests and your causes, you will find that you're getting sort of pulled into those opportunities, and you're able to discover these on your own as opposed to getting them sent your way. So that, I think, is another big change that you're going to see.
I think too, another trend that I'm seeing is in people's attitudes of what drives them to want to give. So I think one of the big things is a lot of revelation around the study of happiness in human beings, and a lot of what that's revealed in the last couple of decades, that helping other people actually is good for your mental health. And this really important focus on mental health recently as well. So people being able to connect those things. And I'd love to see, I don't know that I've seen that quite as much as I'd like to, but I hope that that's a trend that grows over time, that people start making those connections between what truly is self-care and helping other people. The other trend that I see in attitudes is around the recognition of privilege and what privileges you have, of where you were born, what color skin you have, what kind of money or resources you grew up with, and how that positions you to do good in the world. And not that privilege leaves you in a place of wallowing of how society is now, but that privilege can actually set you up to contributing to good and to using those privileges to other people's advantage and not just your own. So I think all of those trends, we hope to see all of those trends working together in tandem with technology so that people can find the right place to contribute and do good.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think, people's attitudes are changing, and we're more aware these days, especially, I get it that the media sometimes tends to focus on, sensationalist things, but, I think there's more awareness. To me, I think you speak about, privilege, right? I think that's definitely something that people are also more aware to. Just one thing that I wanted to add there is, is this. I think each of us has to own the problem, right? We have to believe that we are the cause for a lot of the unhappiness in the world, and unless we accept that, right? I mean. And it may not be something that we are today, but maybe in the past, right, we looked at, something that we were rude to someone, right? Or we were mean to someone. I mean, at that time, maybe we were not aware, right? But every time you create a situation where you are causing some pain on someone else, you are creating more problem, because again, just like good amplifies itself, bad is also going to amplify itself and create, people who are going to be more violent, people who are going to be more, right? So you're causing the problem. So the most important thing, I think, is to own the problem and know that you had some role in creating this problem and in making it worse. So when you realize that, I think you are more willing to also own the solution, as opposed to thinking that this is something that you inherited, because you didn't inherit this. You had a role, you have a role in the 30, 40 years that you've lived. Every time that you were mean to someone, you created a negative, effect that somehow magnified itself, causing a problem, turning someone into who he or she is today. So you have a role in that, and you shouldn't forget that. And the more you realize that and the more you own the problem, the more you're going to be driven to solve the problem, right? So I think that mindset has to come. And you're right that people are more aware of that. But, you need to own the problem first. You need to know that you are responsible for what things are today, and then use that, that feeling of responsibility to motivate you to drive towards a solution.
I really like that perspective, because I think that there is a lot of talk of, we've inherited this problem. I'm thinking of climate change specifically. We've inherited it. It's not my fault. It's not my problem. I didn't do anything. Why should I have to go in and fix it? Right? I think that that's a really easy logical jump to make. When in reality, if you really analyze your behaviors in the world, you are very likely to find that some of your behaviors are continuing to contribute to the problem. And if you're not starting to contribute to the solution, then you're still part of the problem. I really like that mindset shift. I think we've inherited this problem as a potentially really toxic way to look at it.
Exactly, yeah. No, you're 100% right. And if you think about it, I mean, we're not perfect. we are a part of the problem, and we will be a part of the solution as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. I hope so. I hope so. Let's do it. Let's do it. So what advice do you have for someone who's listened to this conversation and is in engineering, has a really strong background in technology like yourself, and wants to do some kind of tech for good project or organization? Can you give us the first 3 things or 3 questions that they should ask themselves when starting a project?
The first thing that you want to do is to try to understand the impact of your idea as quickly as possible, right? So, and the idea at that point is to try to not go after perfection, but trying to go after something that can start giving you feedback from the outside world. It could be just throwing up a website out there and trying to get feedback from folks as to, sharing it with folks and trying to see what they think. I mean, do they think that there's merit in this? Let's say, for example, you're trying to start a campaign to clean your neighborhood, right? Just clean the neighborhood, right? And, you can go off and you can set up an elaborate platform and go and recruit people and create a campaign and get people to sign up. You can do all of that. But what about you just start with a website, with a page, simple page that says, hey, this is what I want to do, and then put up an interest form there and then see, are people interested? Let it run for a couple of months, put it on Facebook, share it to your network. That, I think, is a great way to get that early feedback into your idea and to see if, it's just talking and getting the word out. I mean, once you have some sort of, understanding as to whether or not, the idea that you have is going to work and people are interested, then at that point, right, again, it depends on the type of technology that you need in order to build out your solution. Sometimes it can just be, like using some WordPress is great. I mean, WordPress has so many features that, from payments to, you can build an entire shopping site on WordPress. Right. And they have such great you have to be prepared to spend a little bit of money, but it's not a lot. You can buy a template, for a website, like a shopping website, and you can use PayPal and all these other tools, and you can just, roll out your, in case you're doing something for good, again, rather than a shopping site, in this case, it would be something where, you just have, you're making announcements for whatever, whatever good you're trying to do, set up interest forms, and get people to start participating, right? But then again, like if you're trying to build out something more, especially like a charitable platform, then there's more work involved, right? And even in those cases, like it's amazing how you can really quickly build out a platform these days with one of these cloud providers like AWS, right? Where you can just, they have these ready-made templates, right? Let's say you want to build out a mobile platform, you can build up a base website and a base platform within like a day.
Wow.
Okay. Because the code is already there. You just have to, but of course, like, as a technologist, yes, it. I mean, maybe if you're not a technologist, you need to find someone, but for a technologist, it's really easy to go in there and build something up and, and then you have to obviously like, invest in trying to grow it out. If you already know the languages that you're trying to write for, you can do it yourself. Otherwise, then you have to try to find some folks who can come in and help you to build that out. So I think it starts off, like I said, there's this whole thing about idea. You get a team, start the work, go out, do some just basic vetting of your idea, set up a simple website, gather interest. People are interested. If you know that there's enough interest, then depending on what it is you're trying to do, either use WordPress in order to go out and build something really quick that doesn't involve too much of technology, or you use one of these cloud providers in order to spin something up really quickly that can, that use one of these templates that you can really spin up, your platform. But it's going to be more work. You got to be prepared that if you're trying to build out your own infrastructure, like a charitable platform, it's going to be more work because you got to start writing code at that point.
Right. But I like that first step of setting something up where you can get feedback in real time.
Yeah. I think that's important. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have 3 questions that we ask at the end of every conversation that we're having here on BCentrico in Conversation. And the first one is that given all of the bad news in the world, you already mentioned how sensational news has become and how bad begets bad, all of the division, all of the grief, all of the inequities in the world. With that top of mind many days of the week, what gives you hope?
So I think there's a lot of good in the world that gives me hope, right? I think, like I said, I think you hear a lot of the bad for every. There are studies that have shown, despite all of what we hear, as humans, we've actually become better people. People, if you look at the happiness index across time, it's at the highest level today than it ever was in the past. You look at poverty index, highest, it's at the lowest that it has been over time, right? So I think there's a lot of, I think statistics tell a different story than what we tend to get gravitated to in the news, right? So I think it's important. I think, again, it goes back, to what we were saying, Caroline, about, taking the time to do good every day, right? And to, again, like I said, I think your mind plays a very big role in what you end up doing, right? And as long as you can tame the mind and make it more a tool that you can use to make things to help you do something better, right? You can focus more on the present, and you can, keep doing the good you're doing without getting distracted, because at the end of the day, it's just a distraction. Like everything that you hear out there, right? If it doesn't motivate you to do good, it is a distraction. It's keeping, like, to your point, if you're not making progress, you're basically regressing. It's the same thing. Like channel everything to help you be a better person, to help you do more good, and use it as a motivation. And if it is not motivating you, then set it aside, right? Because at the end of the day, every second, every minute that you spend worrying about a problem is a minute that could have been spent doing something to alleviate the problem, right? So, and you have to understand that, it's very hard to see it, but you have to understand that every good that you do creates impact. It may not be, feedback may not be immediate, but you have to believe in that, right? So you just believe and keep doing good every day, every time that you can, and it will create impact. It may take 10 years, maybe 20 years, maybe it may outlive you, but you're creating impact. And you have to believe in that and not get distracted by everything around you. That's what motivates me, because if I were to think about everything that's happening around me, I'd never get anything done, right? So yeah, and I hope that, everyone feels that, and that's how you deal with this, because, there isn't another, to me, there isn't another way. The other way is just to get depressed, right? But knowing that I can do something to solve the problem helps me feel better about, myself, and, drives me, it's like a call to action.
So you may have already then answered the next question, but I want to know a little bit more about you personally in what you do in your everyday life to reduce or avoid burnout. A lot of the time when people work in social impact space or have a project that's solving a really complex, difficult problem, they feel like things aren't changing quickly enough and they run out of energy for that. How do you re-energize? How do you refill your cup?
Yeah, my days are pretty long, but I think the most important thing is to love what you're doing. I think when you're in love, you don't feel time go by. And when you love what you do, it's not a burden anymore, right? I think that is the most important thing. Find something. Not everyone is lucky, I guess, but I have been lucky that everything that I do, I've been able to do the things that I love, like my teaching, the social projects that I'm working on, the job that I currently have, everything, right? It's basically like, give me joy, right? And I think that's the most important thing. And then I think the other thing is basically planning, right? To me, procrastination is the worst thing for your sanity. Okay. Discipline, being able to plan out your day, plan out your month, plan out your year, take time to do the things, not only to move your work forward, but also to improve yourself. Like, I'm learning Spanish, playing the guitar, doing a bunch of things that are that I want to do, that make me also, then in a sense they also serve as sort of a distraction and as a way to to get my mind off these other things. I think, to me, I think procrastination is it really affects your sanity. It's a serious problem. Being disciplined, planning out your day, organizing your tasks, setting the right expectations with others about what you can and cannot do, being able to say no. Those I think are super important for you to have the space to go and be yourself. Because the moment you have to be mature enough to think about, to put yourself on top. Because if you fall sick, you cannot help anyone, right? But as long as you have the energy and you're able to do the things that you love to do in the space, and you're given the space to do that, then it's just helpful for everybody around. So setting the rules, a secret to me, meditation has been I think the thing that completely changed my perspective towards life. Because in India there is a form of meditation called Vipassana. Vipassana is all about taming the mind, right? It's basically, it goes back to the mind as a tool, and not as, look at the mind like, if, for example, your arm were to continuously keep moving without your knowledge, that's not a good thing, right? So the question is like, why should the mind act without your knowledge, right? When you're not aware of your mind doing things, that to me, it's insanity, right? And to be able to create that awareness of your mind, and to be able to channelize your mind. The mind is important because there are times when I want to think about, how do I solve this problem? How do I prepare myself for this call, right? But it's setting the time aside, just like you're setting the time aside to play the guitar or to write a story, to set aside time for your mind to go and use your mind to do something productive is, I think, really important. And I think meditation, is priceless in that, because a lot of times I think people, unfortunately, they're just slaves to their mind, and it's just running continuously and directing them, and and they lose track of time. They are unable to do what. It's very sad. But to overcome that, I think, and to have, to be in a position where you're using it as a tool is a great place to be.
So you talked about doing something that you love. I think you're right. People have to be really lucky, have to be in a really privileged position to be able to do that as their full-time job. But I think there are things that people can do to find something that they love to do every day or every week or every month. And setting boundaries, you mentioned setting boundaries, being able to say no, being able to take care of yourself, practicing some kind of meditation or mindfulness. Sounds like that's been a really important thing for you as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. The book that kind of like changed me several years back was The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. Eckhart Tolle. So yeah, that kind of drew me towards, just living in the present and not being, sort of like lost in the mind. And since then, I've always been searching for better ways to, use the mind for what it was meant to be, what it's meant to be, and not for what it has become.
Absolutely. So storytelling is a word that gets thrown around a lot. We've touched on it a little bit, but how do we need to be telling this story about giving and charity and compassion to help people do more impactful work in their communities?
Storytelling is key to driving impact. There's no doubt about that. And I guess the question is, like, what is a story, right? A story, to me, and sometimes it's good to go back to Hollywood for this, because they are the best at storytelling, right? Every word and every scene and everything is there to cause a reaction, to take you to an emotional level that they want to take you to, right? And to me, like, when we want to tell a story for giving, you want to tell a story that is going to place the giver or whoever you're trying to connect to as the hero of the story, right? So this is like their journey, and you are on a mission to help them, say, be happy, right? And at least that's how it is with the projects that I'm working on. It's, our mission is to make you happy, and how do we get you to that place, right? How can we help you on that journey where you are sort of the hero of the story, and we're giving you all of these weapons and these tools and all. Not weapons is sort of a wrong word, but we're giving you all of these.
Maybe not quite the right metaphor.
Not the right metaphor, but we're giving you all these tools to help you be like your hammer, and all these other things to help you sort of be successful in achieving your goal, right? So I think it's about that, right? And I think if you take the case of Easy Donate, right, it's about trying to find out, like, what problem do you have, right? Problems do you have? We are living in a push-based model. If you want to go and if I want to organize a campaign to clean my street, there is no way for me to do that. We have intentions, like we all have things that we want to do. I'm here. I look at a homeless person on the street, and I want to do something, but there's friction. I want to clean the street. There's friction. I want to have a safer neighborhood. I want to do a neighborhood watch. There's friction. Like, there's friction every step of the way, right? And as creators, as trying to leverage tech to do good, your mission is basically to try to figure out how you can break down those barriers so that people can do the things that they want to do, right? In order to live happier lives. And to me, stories are about that. Stories are about trying to figure out how your product or your service can help someone, become the successful hero of their story, right? How can you empower them with the things that they need to be successful?
I love that. What a great note to end on. Thank you so much, Sanjay, for joining us. Sanjay Doreiraj started Easy Donate with a team including Centrico Digital. And if you're interested in learning more, we'll have some information in the description box below. Thanks again, Sanjay, for joining us for BCentrico in Conversation.
Thank you, Caroline. It's really great talking to you. All right. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Thank you for watching this episode of BCentrico in Conversation. If you're looking for more ways to tell your sustainability story, reach out. BCentrico is a managed marketing services company, and we help nonprofits and other purpose-driven companies to scale their impact. Our contact information is in the description below. I'd love to hear from you. And make sure you stay tuned for more conversations about sustainability and storytelling.